welcome to the Friendlyjordies podcast. You're listening to episode number 33, I'm guessing, actually, now. I'm not sure, but
333.
Either way, welcome to the Friendlyjordies podcast. Did you know an interesting fact? 25% of the people...
There's a mouse in front of my nose.
Yeah. I don't think that's coming up.
It's not coming.
It's like, we need your pest kill.
Yeah. It's all done. Sorry. It's all used.
You've done it all? Oh, give them the updates on the roaches in your house.
They're gone. Thank
All
you.
of them.
Well, pretty much.
You haven't seen any?
All I've seen, the only ones I've seen have been dead.
Right.
Just a couple of corpses.
So it
And
worked.
was my theory correct that a couple of your housemates were also dead?
Yeah, well, one of them was dead, yeah. But that was just
Sacrifices had to be
coincidence.
made.
That was just coincidence.
But one of your housemates was a roach.
Well,
Was actually paying money. And so everybody has to kick in an extra $50. You didn't think about this.
well, it's just worth it to avoid all the droppings.
Really?
But, you know, like...
Oh, and also... There is another update.
I thought,
and then we'll get onto your big news, Ali. But
What's
there
the
is
update?
even bigger news in the share house.
Oh,
from
for
hell.
fuck's sake.
What's the big news?
We'll talk about that maybe on the pod, shall we?
The
This is the
upload?
pod.
You mean the upload?
Yeah. No, actually, who
Poll on
cares?
Twitch. How many people want to hear the update
Yeah, let's
from
do
this
that.
love share
Yeah,
house?
poll it up. You're not getting this for free.
All right, well, we'll get to that. But
Yeah.
did you know an interesting fact, miss? 25% of the people that watch our YouTube videos haven't subscribed.
Thieves. So they're thieves.
Can't.
Unbelievable. Well,
No, you're all
I
right.
hope
But subscribe if you're listening.
No,
and you
no,
already
just-
Make
subscribed.
sure that you subscribe. And also, while we're shouting things out, Friendlyjordies cancels the media. Now available in some cities.
that's what
Yes.
he shared. Jimmy's on tour, hitting all the cities. Brisbane, Canberra, maybe Sydney.
Yeah, but there's you can go on to the Facebook page. There is a wide selection of cities that, I'm pretty sure it is Canberra, Brisbane.
Yeah. From Toowoomba to Toongabbie.
Yep. Well, I mean, you can travel from Toowoomba to Brisbane.
Exactly.
That's the deal.
Yeah.
And
it's pretty far still. What the hell you want?
yeah,
COVID.
you enjoy the scenic ride.
Yeah.
COVID's an issue.
It's not an issue.
No, especially not in Queensland. I've got nothing here. It's just
No. Look,
out of sheer laziness, they will be dropped incrementally throughout. So you may as well just check out the Facebook page every day.
Yeah, it'll all be on there.
It's worth
It's
it.
like old times. You remember touring? You remember shows? You remember what shows are like?
It was the most fun thing ever.
Yeah, that was a crazy time, you know?
It was, and those times are hopefully going to resume now.
Yeah. Albo,
When are you going to start strumming on stage?
20 years? Well, we'll see how we go, I guess. Maybe.
Hopefully
Well, being
soon,
part of
hopefully
this
soon.
podcast, I think it'll be kind of hard for Miss Love to tour
Why?
within the music industry, but he's open.
Wait, because you're severing your ties? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, but we'll be getting into
Yeah,
that.
true.
We'll get into that later.
That's true. My before my chances of touring were destroyed before I could start.
How many people can say that?
Yeah, not many.
All right, look, here's our first topic for the day. There's a new development. The property market has gone berserk. Is it a bubble? Is it going to burst? Is everything going to be worthless?
No.
Let's talk.
Isn't that just the same old shit?
That's my opinion, but Jordan has a different one.
What's my different opinion?
You think it's a bubble, it's going to burst.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah, definitely.
Nah.
You really shouldn't be taking investment advice from me. What I will say, though, is recently I was having a discussion with a guy from YouTube about the property market. I don't know how I got onto that because I was supposed to be asking him about how I'm supposed to get a bigger audience. But as usual, I got sidetracked into housing.
And the irony was, it was to
Despite me
talk
having
about
no
property.
interest in it. The only thing that I have to say, it's just so I can say that because I think that is pre-COVID, the second most talked about conversation in Australia after how's the weather. The next piece of big, safe chat that you can say to anyone in Australia is, what do you think about this bubble, 30% or 40%? And his response was, I understand why there is a housing bubble because, and I never never thought of it this way.
Who was this cunt?
I'm not going to say.
Some random.
I mean, aren't we all? But
Was he? Did you know what he was talking about?
yeah, well,
Okay.
he just put in this piece of advice, which is
All right,
that
go on.
he understands why it's become such an issue, and it's because it is just such an easy investment. I never thought about it before, but he's right. You just hand over $1 million, and then the next day it's worth $3 million, and you have a continual stream of $1,000 coming into your bank account for the rest of your life. Occasionally, a real estate agent will say, "Window's broken, do you want to fix it?" And then you say no, and then the tenants just have to live with that.
That's right. That's how it works.
Yes.
That's one of. I'll tell you why the Australian, in my opinion, why the Australian property market keeps growing, and even when it's predicted to burst, it doesn't do that. One reason is, so the reason why we think that there's a bubble is that the prices are growing in an unnatural pace.
Well, to give you an idea of how natural it is, a house that we were looking at in Erskineville that sold in October went for $1.25 million. 2 weeks ago, it sold for $1.75 million.
Yeah.
Whoa.
So my joke about it being worth $3 million, it probably was accurate. If they sold it on the 29th of October, they would have been $1.5 million richer.
Yeah, and
It's nuts.
Look, after the pandemic, the housing market sort of deflated about 20%, more so in cities, urban cities, and particularly in close to central business districts. And so it does make sense that the price has gone up, because it goes in a cyclical fashion, right? So that's normal. But here's why I think that Australian property market is really safe. It's because all of us think it's really safe. That's one of the big factors. So if you look at the American dream was you start a business, you can be anyone, and you can succeed and you can become filthy rich. Australian dream is you can own a house. That's what we base our entire...
You can also renovate the house.
You can also renovate the house. And not only is that a perception that most people in Australia have, which results in anyone that gets some sort of spare money, they go for a second house. In other countries, they might be looking at other kind of investments. Like, for
What about
example,
in Pakistan?
gold is big over there because gold is like a safe bet for them. It's detached from the government. So if they think if the government collapses, gold will maintain its price.
Let's be honest, they're a week away from changing their currency to US dollars, aren't they? If gold is the major investment of your country.
No, there's other property.
rice.
Property is huge over there too. By the way, property is big
Huge everywhere.
But so here's the thing. Here's why I think Australian property market remains steady. That's one of the things, that the Australian dream is owning a house, which means that the general perception amongst every Australian is that property is safe. Hence, they keep investing in it even in times of downturn, which which keeps the price somewhat steady. The second aspect is that even though the population seems to be stagnant, which usually means that every kind of bubble will deflate, but Australia keeps getting a steady inflow of migrants. The migrants, the increases the demand, so the supply has to keep up with it. The other aspect is the urbanization. So even if you're not getting people from China and India buying stuff, you still have people moving from different parts of Australia towards city centers. And so that keeps driving up the demand as well. And lastly, and the most important factor, which I think even in terms of like horrible crisis will keep the property market steady, our social network, like, you know how the US, whenever they're facing some kind of depression, they're like, how about we build 100 more tanks? We do that with our construction and builders. Like, the first thing we did during the pandemic was, how about everyone gets $50,000 to renovate their house? It's because the housing market, or the housing building market, is an extremely protected labor sector in Australia. So
let's be honest, that was really just a pork barrel.
It might have been a pork barrel, but there's a reason why they chose that to be the pork barrel, because
But you could have used Labor's alternative of building public housing.
You could, but then
That's
that
still
would
construction.
not. That's still construction, but that's not going to make older rich people happy. So there's a reason
Yes.
why they do it. But the point.
You know that to sign up for Home Builder, you had to have a minimum of $125,000 a year coming into your bank account, meaning that it really was targeted at those who struggle the most in a pandemic, lawyers and plumbers.
Exactly. Actually, that's our second segment of how we can talk. We need to talk about like some wage growth issues over there too. But essentially, those are my points of why I think the housing bubble exists. And even if it depreciates, it will go down again like it did before, but it's going to depreciate by another 10, 15%. The demand remains really stable. The supply is also stable because we've just got more room.
It's also because we are building apartments like mad. And so I didn't realize this, but the Australian dream has kind of morphed into the Singaporean dream, where I don't think anyone can afford a house. Isn't this insane? All right, not to toot my own horn, but of our generation, and there's no way to not say this is about toot your own horn, but come on. I'd have to be one of the biggest celebrities of Gen Y because there are none, as they weren't propped up by a mainstream media nexus. So it's just pretty much just me and Lewis Spears, right? That's who you've got. And then you obviously have a few international acts from music that have gone off to Hollywood, and they do really constructive things for the economy, like play GTA 5 6 months of the year.
Hell yeah.
But I was just thinking about that, and now that I'm looking for a house, I've noticed that I'm going to areas that have always been considered lower middle class. And you go to these open houses, you know who's there? It's couples that you can tell both of them are high roller professionals. It's a few Chinese investors, and it's really laggard families that have called in a lot of favors from their parents plus their incomes combined.
Yeah.
And every time I see their faces, I think, yeah, you waited to the last egg in your womb to have a kid, didn't you?
No.
And they're struggling to get a family home.
It's kind of
I really, when people say that over 50% of our population will never own a house, I used to think that's where you're wrong because Miss Love owned a house.
Sucked in.
Why have you turned into Banksy?
I don't know. Just going for it. I'm still grossed out by the egg comment.
Egg comment?
Egg.
Oh, yes.
Remember
I thought
that?
you were just still thinking about cockroach eggs.
Now I'm going to have to leave it on for an hour. Yeah, the fact that I could get a house
You
is...
hate eggs, don't you?
Yeah.
It means that housing is affordable as long as you're
You
willing
live in
to
Lithgow.
move very far
Yeah.
away from
And even
all your
then-
friends and family.
Yeah, and even then, it was exactly that situation you said of like scrounging together as all of our savings and having to borrow money from our parents. And then it was like, yes, we've just done it. We've got a mortgage for a not big house 4 hours out of Sydney, but there's a backyard. There's grass. Can you see it? I can see it. It's green, isn't it? Isn't it?
But did you lose money on it?
Well, that's a different story. I got bought out, but I didn't lose money.
Yeah,
no.
you did. Because
I made money on it.
yeah, you...
Not much.
A lot of people have
because I pulled
recently
out.
made... But here's one last thing of why housing property keeps going up. And this is a problem that's not just Australian. This is a global issue. The amount of savings that we are collecting as a society, not the poorest. The poorer you are, the less savings you get. But the richer you are, you're not looking to invest into productivity or any kind of thing. Like, you're not willing to invest in a business. What you're willing to do with a lot of your savings is buy shares. Essentially, if you're a company, the way you invest is you buy your own stocks, which is a horrible way to invest for productivity. So all the money that people are saving is being parked into things like property and stocks. So there's almost an infinite demand because high rollers are looking to buy the amount of apartments that they made. The assumption, I remember in 2015 when they had upstaged the amount of apartments that they were going to make, the assumption was, or this was being pitched to us, is that look, the prices are really high because there's immense amounts of demand. So we're just going to flood the market with a lot of supply, and that's going to bring the property down. The apartments ended up getting made, but the prices never got down because there were plenty of people willing to buy up that property. So it's not that there's 22 million people. If there's 40 million houses, the price is going to become half because there's that's half. It's like if there's 20 million people, they'll buy 40 million houses. They'll buy 60 million houses because it's not actually 20 million people that are buying those houses. It's actually a million people that have a lot of money that they don't know what to do with.
And it's 1,000 people that are purchasing 1,000 properties.
Yeah.
Because this is the other factor that I learned from Prosper Australia. They're a great institution. They've been around since 1901, I think, and they're constantly looking into property prices. And you know how they've stayed afloat? They don't even ask for donations anymore. It's just they understand the property market so well that they just keep recycling investments in property to make sure that they can keep pumping out, honestly, the best research there is when it comes to housing. They're obsessed with it, and they really know how it works. And they were saying that in Melbourne and Sydney, there are suburbs where up to 20% of the properties are deliberately left vacant. What they're doing is turning property where people live into diamonds. They are making them artificially scarce to increase the price. And so you're right. Even if there was 80 million houses in Australia, they'd buy 60 million.
They'll get bought up.
Very cheeky.
And so
that's naughty, isn't it?
But the question still remains, like the issue still remains. A lot of people still can't buy properties, even with a market that's being flooded with new properties.
I don't understand how there's this business mogul here that
bought it. You got to move to Lithgow.
Business mogul, dude.
And you've got to have
How is
an
there a
income in
stock
Lithgow.
market king
Dude.
and a high property developer roller on this
Not a
podcast?
stock
When did this
market
turn into domain.com?
Look, for me, all the keyholes lined up for a millisecond in my life, and by a pure chance, I fell into that.
But even that's hard to do. So if you think about it, look, let's say there's
You're a
about
lucky man.
200,000
wouldn't say
people
that.
currently looking to buy a house in Sydney. They can't afford to get a house. So if they try to pull off a mislove, what they need to do is not only do they need to move to like a city or a town that's like 2 hours away or 2.5 hours away, they also need to have steady income in that low density population area to sustain their mortgage. So Mislove had a situation where he had a restaurant that he was running. He literally went there and set up a restaurant and started to run it. For a lot of people that have jobs around here, they can try to do it with this new COVID stuff. It's going to make it easier if they can work remotely. But the biggest barrier still remains that my work is in the city. I cannot afford a house in the city. My income is not rising at the same rate as inflation. So I progressively keep getting poorer. But my options in regional areas also shrink at the same time.
Yeah.
So I'm in a shit cookie. And that's a lot of the people that are trying their best to buy a house in Sydney, and they end up moving to like some shitty apartment in Homebush, or they like buy a house in Penrith, which is like an hour and a half. And they just like live that US style life where they travel 2 hours. I know people that used to work at Dan Murphy's who traveled every day for 3 hours from Central Coast. The only way for them to own a property. But here's the thing. Here's the fallacy that, it's not the fallacy, but the culture that Australia has, they are still willing to do that because owning a property is really, really important. Actually, that's the attitude that keeps the investors happy, because the investors can do whatever they can buy a property, they can keep it vacant, but without the Australian population having this like unshakable faith in housing, they won't be able to sustain their position either. Because they're backed up with a lot of dummies like us that are willing to
But
get
wasn't
it.
this all like started by
right.
Howard? Isn't that? Because it's not. This is a bit by design, right?
I think, look,
You can look at the graph.
So it is by design.
Well, as soon as he halved capital gains, you can see the chart.
Yeah.
It goes halve capital gains. And the reason is once you have halved capital gains, you have turned Australian housing into one of the safest investments on earth. And especially with opening up foreign investment, anyone can buy it. They can buy huge quantities of it. And if you don't have to pay any tax when you sell it, where's the downside?
Yeah.
It just keeps doubling,
That's
I think,
crazy.
every 2 months, something like that.
And
There was a stat that I was reading recently that said that in the 90s, a house was, I think, 5 times the average wage, the average annual wage.
Yeah.
Now it's 20 times the average.
But that's what I'm saying. Like, that's what I don't understand. What was his motivation to do that? What, like a sudden bump
Because
in investment?
the Liberals, one of their major donors is the property investing firms.
Here, let's
So,
look. Let
no
me
bloody
give you
vision.
some stats on this, right? So in
Oh,
the
yeah,
last month, just 1 month, the property price in Sydney has gone up 2.5%, Melbourne 2.1%, and Brisbane 1.5%. This is just 1 month. If you look at the
this
quarter,
is domain.com. If we just all had smiles on our face right now, there's no difference between those podcasts.
Yeah.
They give you the exact same information and say, and that's why Tasmania is a hot spot.
no, it's I'm trying to make a different point over here. So the median value of Sydney housing is $895,000, right? This is not the average house. This is the median house. The average house is close to $1.3 million.
In Sydney?
Yes.
Yeah.
Do you know what that stat is showing us? So median is when, let's say you've got 10 total houses. The median is the middle point. So it'll be like at the 5th point. So it'll be like 5.5. Average is that they collect the total number of houses and they divide by however number of houses it was. So average is 895,000, whereas median is 1.2. That's showing immense amounts of inequality. Because technically, in a somewhat ideal society, your median value of a house should be equivalent to your average income. But there is close to a $500,000 difference over there. What that's showing us is that people that are buying houses for a much higher price, like 1.52 million, are owning most of the houses. And people that are owning cheaper houses are actually a lot less in number the lower you go, then those people are not even in the property market. Anyways, what I'm saying is that within the last month, it's increased by 3.5% means that inequality is also increased by about 1.5%. It's going insane. Here's the other thing that I recently learned about. JobKeeper, right? JobKeeper, all the money that companies were getting for JobKeeper. So usually what happened was during the first few weeks of this crisis, a lot of companies genuinely didn't know how they were going to pay a lot of these employees. So hence they started getting JobSeeker. JobSeeker was a 6-month deal, initially a 6-month deal that they were going to get, which was if you qualify for it initially, then just for 6 months, every employee of yours, you're going to get $750. Not the employees, the business is going to get $750. What ended up happening was within a few weeks, all of these businesses became profitable again. So they could afford the salaries, but they obviously kept getting their money for 6 months and for some businesses a year. They used all of that money to buy back their own shares. And so
You're talking about big corporations.
I'm talking about
here.
big corporations.
Yeah.
So the share market went berserk in a time when we were in a pandemic, flooded by taxpayer money, which does increase inflation, but the inflation will only matter to the little person that got their initial salary because their value of money is going to be less.
You know, they think that up to 8% of small businesses will be destroyed as a result of JobKeeper. So much for the party of small business. That was by design. I was looking at the big picture. I've got a big video coming out about COVID. It is very cleverly entitled Shcovid. They were talking about a huge portion of it is unpacking what you're discussing here. And if you look at the wider context of what was happening there, they had the recipe of Rudd. They could have handled COVID exactly the same way that Kevin Rudd handled the global financial crisis. In fact, if you look at the stats now, there's a bunch of European nations, New Zealand, most developed countries just copied what Kevin Rudd did in the global financial crisis. And as a result, they have much stronger economies. You saw bounce backs that were insane. You saw countries that would plunge maybe 11% in GDP in one quarter, and then the next quarter they jumped back by 15%. So there was no recession there. Australia is having one of the worst recessions it's ever had, clearly by design, because the Liberals intentionally put in JobKeeper. So the party that loves to cut red tape created the biggest nexus of government/corporate bureaucracy in Australian history by giving this money out to employers that they will dole out to their employees, but also with the guys that it's going to take a month for all of these things to be determined and cleared, when you could have just pumped it straight into everybody's wallets and a lot less as well. And it would have been much better for the economy, because that's exactly what you need in a credit crunch. You need lots of money pumped in really quickly from people that need to spend it.
Yeah.
You do not give this money out to corporations that can cushion the fall. And then all the small businesses, they couldn't keep afloat for a month paying their employers. So a lot of them went belly up. Why did they want them to go belly up? Because the larger corporations that inhabit that sector...
Jesus. My bad.
Now that was a classic mislove moment mixed with a classic Ali moment. And
That
what do
was
you
you
get?
banging on the
Brilliant
bloody
comical
table, mate.
results.
Wait, well, why is this my
Go
mode?
on.
Mixed with, classic Geordies.
Smashing on. Keep going.
But keep going. Sorry, yeah.
Now that's a fine moment of history right there.
But you know what? In hindsight, I'm gonna admit this, that I did not have the foresight at the time. But in hindsight, I 100% agree with you.
I didn't. This is the whole thing. When you go back and look at this all, everything that they constructed, both with the Reserve Bank and with their own fiscal policies, which everybody always says, yeah, but they're different. Yeah, like the ABC is independent, as is the Reserve Bank. The governor is appointed by the treasurer. Who's the treasurer? But what were they doing? They were allowing banks credit 8% of the GDP. So they just invented 8% of money to give out to banks. And they basically JobKeepered that 8% of GDP to the major banks, these ones that they said that they punish after the Banking Royal Commission. Their punishment was to give them unlimited money and to do whatever they want with it. What do you think banks want to do with it? They want to give it out to major corporations because they know major corporations will be able to pay it back. And this was very, very cheap credit. So major corporations thought, okay, our entire, the smaller businesses that we were competing with are completely crippled. They are those cockroaches in Miss Love's house. That was Scott Morrison's economic act in a nutshell. It was just sprinkling Baygon amongst the small business cockroaches. And that allowed the giants to just sit there and go, okay, well, we have total market dominance in this situation. We have no competition. We have unlimited cheap credit. The taxpayer is paying for our largest expense, which is labor. We are going into debt for generations just so they don't have to pay their employees for a year. Yeah. And then they used all of those huge quantities of money to just absolutely ransack anyone that was smaller than them to gain even more market dominance. It was that same thing of just, never waste a crisis. Well, the Liberals don't waste a crisis. It's just that they don't waste a crisis for their donors.
So there was no 1 month waiting for the big companies.
No, there was 1 month waiting for the big companies, but they can afford that. They can afford to wait out for 70 years?
Can they afford it, but those big companies knew that they were going to get those checks eventually because they were the reasons why JobKeeper was in the first. So they knew that. Second thing, banks with all that
big ass
are willing to
insider
give
trading.
Are willing to give big corporations money, not because they can pay it back. Often, if you think about big corporations, do you know like Uber has never turned a single dollar of profit? But they would get any amount of debt that they want because their debt by banks is seen more. Yeah, never because they don't want to pay taxes.
So they're propped up.
So they keep buying other kind of businesses. They keep fake investing in their businesses so that they can keep their expenses high and never pay tax. So on paper, they've never made a profit, whereas their executives get bonuses that would dwarf 20 years of your salary in a single year. And banks keep giving them profit, even though banks know that maybe they might not be even able to pay them back, but it's still considered good lending because they are too big to fail, kind of thing.
Yeah, it's like, didn't Trump get a similar treatment in his time? He went bankrupt, right? And they were just like, yeah, look, your voice sounds funny, so we'll give you a couple
bankruptcy
of
laws in the U.S. are
That
actually pretty cool. Like, the U.S. is the best place to be bankrupt Basically, if you go bankrupt, what's that chapter something that they file?
You're rewarded.
Not only are you rewarded, but like everything prior to that, gone.
Yeah,
You
clean
start
slate,
from
free
a
man.
clean slate. So all your debts are now gone because you filed for bankruptcy. That is
Really?
not the case in Australia.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, if I was in America, I would just file for bankruptcy tomorrow, and then I wouldn't have to pay back my HECS.
Yeah, you wouldn't.
Fuck, I've still got to pay.
Actually,
mine
you know
back.
what's funnily enough?
Fuck.
Weirdly,
Oh,
student
yeah, no,
loans are the
you're
only
right,
ones that you
you're
still have to
right.
pay for.
What?
Student loans are the only ones that you still have to pay
This
for in
is
the US.
ridiculous. But
Oh,
it's
are
true.
you
Yeah.
kidding?
Yeah.
Are
Insane.
you fucking kidding me?
Yeah, insane. But the other thing that
Are
we
you
also
kidding
found
me? Are you
out
kidding
after these pandemic JobKeeper payments is that if you are poor or if you're not like a rich guy, any money, any stimulus money that you're going to get, you're going to spend in the economy as soon as
Yeah,
possible.
if
If you're really rich, if you're a company that keeps receiving $750 times every employee that you have for 1 year, you are not spending that money in the economy. You are just buying shares.
Yeah.
So do not underestimate this point of yours of why Kevin Rudd's strategy was way better, because that's the only proven way for us to actually stimulate the economy.
Yep.
Because every time you pay big corporations, they never do. They have no incentive to. They already have a lot of savings. It's not they didn't have money. Their entire agenda is that their shareholders stay happy, which means that they need to keep giving them some sort of dividends. So they keep investing whatever amounts of profits they make on the back of their employees for their own share so that, you know, the fucking price remains stable.
Yep.
It's criminal, actually.
They don't hire people, do they?
Well, they won't hire people because of any kind of stimulus. If they need to hire
Yeah.
people, they'll hire people. But they're constantly thinking of how to lay off people. The entire
Yeah.
idea is efficiency
Jesus Christ.
and reducing amounts of the number of employees that you have.
It's pretty wild.
So yeah, basically,
it is
I can't believe I'm saying this, but Jordan, you're right. The pandemic economic strategy was a failure.
What a controversial statement on this pod.
But now I know
All you
it
need
to
to
be
know
true.
is, and I've always used this as the go-to silver bullet. Anytime you're ever arguing with anyone that says that the Liberals are better for the economy, always point out OECD, Labor, #1 in the world. Best economic managers in the OECD, which is pretty much just the developed world. Scott Morrison, currently sitting around, I think, 34th. We fell down 33 places from first place when we were given a huge economic head start because we were the only country that had a Kevin Rudd stimulus package because, I don't know, Kevin Rudd PM doesn't air in Luxembourg. So they didn't know what was going through that brilliant man's mind. And even with that massive head start, even with being one of the only country, I think we were the only country in the world that didn't go into recession, we are now in one of the worst recessions, the worst recession in our nation's history. From there to there in the span of 7 years. You can only get to that position through gross economic mismanagement, and I will go further, deliberate destruction of the economy.
And the worst thing is we're probably going to stay here for a bit.
Yeah.
Because now I don't see any, unless the government, and sorry, I'm going to say it because I think it matters over here, unless the Australian government rethinks its China strategy, I don't think there's any way out of, we can't go back to 2013,
Well, this is the
2014
other
levels of
argument that
growth.
everybody says is, it's happened because of China. Yes, Kevin Rudd just fluked being best economic manager on earth like Michael Jordan fluked being best basketball player in the NBA. There was no skill involved in that whatsoever. It was purely the saving grace of China. I'm talking about Michael Jordan, by the way. China put him there. But Kevin Rudd, even if you're going to believe the Australian talking point that it was China that got us out of the global financial crisis, who would you prefer at the helm? The guy that can speak Mandarin or the guy that is going out of his way to antagonize that country that's supposed to save us or invade us, depending on whatever narrative you need to follow for that day? Isn't that incredible? The same people that say China saved us in the global financial crisis are the same people now saying China's about to invade us. It just depends on whatever the Australian says. That's their opinion.
Kevin Rudd was not just good because he managed the economy. He did some really visionary stuff, in my opinion, which I don't think a lot of people give a lot of importance to. But he was instrumental in basically trying to convince China to join the mainstream. He encouraged them to join the East Asian Council, I think, which was China's initial strategy was like, no, this is too dominated by the US. We're not going to join it. And they were in opposition. It was Kevin Rudd's intense lobbying for them to join it because Kevin Rudd's opinion was you're going to have to give these guys space.
Yeah.
And you need to attract
well
them where we are able to influence their decision making. If you isolate them, then they're going to do stuff without asking you. So he was so instrumental in mainstreaming China to a certain point where China, so all of this animosity that we're having now, it could have happened 3-4 years before because it took a bit of time for China to lose Australia's trust and for Australia to lose China's trust. And Kevin Rudd was instrumental in building that trust, which I think is the way of the future. In the next 50 years, we're going to have to give them space somehow. It's better that we do it on our own terms where we have some say in it. So we can convince them that, this rules-based order that we keep talking about, we can actually convince them on that rules-based order. If we keep isolating them, then they're going to be running shit. It's just that we're going to have zero
isolating ourselves.
Isolating ourselves. Paul Keating had a really good point where when he was asked, what do you think about the US getting angry at us if we keep appeasing China? And Paul Keating was saying, hey, we fought a war with the US, alongside the US 100 years ago. Do you think we have to bring out our marriage certificate every year?
I love that. So true.
Marriage certificate.
Yeah, that's what the Liberal Party says. Don't leave us the ancestry. Mate, they're not leaving you, mate. What are you doing? You're embarrassing yourself.
Well, look,
I highly recommend anybody who's anti-China go out and watch that YouTube talk. I can't remember what it is. Just type in Paul Keating China.
I think
he makes some very salient points.
It is La Trobe University lecture from 2017 with Paul Keating. But anyways,
okay, that is not very esoteric specific knowledge at all.
I listened to it today. All right, so that was that for the housing prices. Now there's an even bigger issue.
Which is the hashtag buttslav is trending.
Yeah, I think I gave a bit of a preview to my OnlyFans when I was cleaning up. You're welcome.
Preview to OnlyFans when you were cleaning up? Go further into that. And what happened to the poll? Did everybody want...
I mooned everyone, dude, when I was cleaning this shit.
Ah, yes. The notorious plumber's crack.
That's the one.
Tell us more.
That's all I got.
About the Cluedo whodunit mystery that has engulfed your house.
Are you talking about the incident?
I think you know I am.
We'll do that.
I think you're stalling for time.
No, but I've decided I'm intentionally stalling for time. You want to hear it? Shine up, bitches.
This is a really key point of this podcast. Grilling Miss Love.
His cockroach situation.
No, that's going to be.
He would do so well in BBC Hard Talk. He's just had years of training for it.
Just being like, I don't understand the question. No, I don't understand the premise. No, I don't have to answer that. No, don't.
But you're dodging the question. There's a bigger question over here. Lady Gaga's dogs are stolen and no one seems to give a fuck.
Yeah?
Yeah. Dude, this is crazy.
I saw
her
the footage.
Dog walker.
Ow.
You saw it.
I saw it at the gym. It's footage.
Dude, her dog walker got shot. Someone came. They said, give me Lady Gaga's dogs. And her dog walker was like, no. So they shot him point blank in the chest and took the dog.
Chest?
Yes.
I saw the footage, but it was dark. I didn't see a chest.
Did he
die?
No, apparently they're saying he'll survive. He could still die, but they're saying he could survive. But for Lady Gaga's French bulldogs.
It's because they're worth a lot of money, apparently, those particular ones. They're like, I don't know, $1 million.
Are they blue?
Fucking ridiculous.
Yeah, they're one of those sort of like,
Show me a picture of Lady Gaga's dogs. I want to see.
You can get
I
that.
bet you it looks exactly the same as my French
They
bulldog.
do.
You can't tell.
They literally do look the same.
Right. Price? Priceless.
Shooting someone in the chest? Priceless. MasterCard helps you kill people for money.
There are some things money can't buy, and for those things, there's guns.
Well, there you go.
How is that worth $1 million?
I don't know. Well,
Those French bulldogs are way uglier than mine.
There's some very rare ones or something, but yeah, Nash, of course, she's like, anyone that can give they can return them.
$5,000.
No, $1 million each.
But like, funnily enough, I don't think
See,
she
this is
gave
how you
shit
know
to the
that where
dog
you're on
walker that got shot.
Really?
Yes, that's so true. It's such, you know where you are on the totem pole as soon as you're in a relationship. Women love dogs more than they love people.
Yeah.
Yes. And actually, I will include myself as a woman.
Yeah,
in that.
let's be honest. Yeah.
But
Not just dogs, like fish as well. Any animal. Cicadas.
it's so sad, though. I bet you that guy gets fired as well.
Oh,
Well, he can't walk the dogs.
Up. Yeah,
She
it's
did call
true.
him a hero, but I didn't hear about any monetary prize for the guy.
Yeah, well, America calls their vets heroes too. They don't pay for them.
Yeah, true. The funny thing is too, like, apparently she was all like, I know what they're trying to do here. They're trying to take the dogs for ransom because they know they can sell them either for a lot of money or get a lot from the ransom.
Well,
I will
it
not
works.
be. No. Yeah. Like, I will not be giving in to these demands. On a different note, anyone that can get the dogs back should get $1 million for each dog. It's like,
Dude, she's doing the Mel
If you
Gibson
are the
thing.
hijacker, just get your friend to go, I got this terrible man.
they're gonna do that.
Yeah.
I'm sure they're gonna do that.
Yeah.
But anyway, I don't know.
And I bet you Lady Gaga will know and still give the $1 million.
Yeah.
Dude, that actually, here's another thing that I didn't tell you guys. Did I tell you?
You would tap Lady Gaga.
A Star is Born, Lady Gaga, yes. Lady Gaga on stage, no.
I had to watch that.
Lady Gaga interviewing Julian Assange, yay.
What?
Whoa, did she? That's Pamela Anderson.
Did that happen?
And so did she.
What?
And to which I'd say, no.
What? Did those things
That's so
happen?
slack.
Did that happen?
Yeah.
Yeah, they did.
Lady
Why?
Gaga loves Julian Assange.
Fair
you know
enough.
why? Because I think that Lady Gaga is one of the only Hollywood celebrities that I think is intelligent.
Fair.
Wow.
Well,
I think the rest of them are pretty dumb.
Yeah,
As
she
in,
did,
I feel
yeah.
sorry for Britney. # free Britney. But she's a bit of a ditz, isn't she?
Well,
I
I
watched
What are you
it.
don't
talking
think
about?
You know what?
You're not
I
on
will
their
say this
side?
about it. It's just so hilarious watching that and just seeing all of these freaks parading around a court saying, free Britney.
Why are
free,
you such a
free."
contrarian?
What?
You spend your entire life pre this documentary defending Britney, thinking that she's the most amazing person, and as soon as you figure out that there's actually a legion of fans that do
True.
the same thing, you're like, nah, fuck Britney. Love Justin Timberlake.
You got me.
Nah, you're
That is my personality. I can't
that's true,
argue
yeah.
with it.
The
You're right.
contrarian.
Look, no, I don't like Justin Timberlake because that was the most cucked apology I've ever heard in my life. But
I haven't seen it. I haven't seen
honestly,
it. I don't
Miss Love,
care
if you
enough
did-
about him, you know?
but he's a musician.
The most controversial thing said all night.
It is. That's
He's a
contrarian.
Musician.
But do you consider him a musician?
No, I fucking don't, dude.
But he does use his voice as an
Yeah, he goes.
instrument.
Yeah, he does that. I suppose that's a musician.
Well, that was just like when I did Spanian. That when you did that, that reset my mind, and I hope you do it more in the future.
Well, okay.
In fact, I know that we've got a lot of music checklists that we're still waiting for, and in Miss Love style, he will deliver on them. It will just take half a decade.
But I'll get there.
adult contemporary, followed by you doing a cover of Justin Timberlake.
No one wants to. Oh.
Come on, who doesn't want to hear that?
Does
I wanna hear
anyone
you
want to
like,
hear
"This
that?
just can't be summer love,
Fuck.
baby.
Fuck.
I want to hear that.
Biggest wuss on earth?
What?
Biggest wuss on earth.
Oh, it's gotta be. Yeah.
Yeah.
Taking that award for sure.
The other thing is that's amazing about that documentary is when you look at it, even though they're trying really, really hard to make it look like Britney Spears is trapped under a conservatorship, even though that's happening and they're explaining the facts, you think, I'm pretty sure she wants to be under conservatorship.
Really?
She's not coming out and saying anything. Everyone's just reading into Instagram posts saying, oh, she posted a window. That's a symbol of freedom. Well, this is what happens when you start a podcast specifically on Britney Spears' Instagram posts. They're not that deep. You've got an hour to fill a week.
Wait a sec, that's a thing?
Yes.
Imagine being
Why are
that-
you listening to this?
Imagine being that big that the intricacies of your life spark industries.
Nah, you don't need to be that big. You just need to be like
That crazy.
I think Britney.
That's insane.
Did Britney
Who the
ever? Did she
fuck's
have a
this?
period where she had like positive media attention on her?
Very, very briefly. I think when she released Oops, I Did It Again, but then that quickly turned into, you're a bad influence for children. But that was, I hate how everyone's just sitting there saying that she was slut-shamed. I'm pretty sure that just happened to everyone. Surely that happened to Fred Durst. Surely that happened to Linkin Park.
Yeah.
You know what also happened to Fred Durst? Britney Spears. Yeah. How sick is it that the Durst Master got in there?
Yeah, of course.
Of course he did.
And most likely, Mrs. Aguilera, come and get some. Oh no, which way to go?
It's so perfect that guy had sex with everybody's idols as a kid.
I know.
That man ruins everything, doesn't he?
Such a weird period of time where he was the height of cool.
When was that?
But also, he's too much of a
1999 to
bad
2001?
1999 to 2002. Yeah,
Yeah,
2002. No, 97 to 2002, I'm going to say.
Okay.
What's that, 5 years?
It is strange. I will say that Britney
Yeah.
Spears would have had to be the biggest entertainment act of that era. Without question. She'd be the closest thing to Michael Jackson. Fred Durst is worth a third of her. Surely Fred Durst wasn't that big.
He had to share
Fred
it with
Durst
the rest of the
did
guys.
not have 100 paparazzis following, actively trying to make her go insane and working. You know that Black Mirror episode where they're constantly following someone around with a camera and people are coming to kill them and then people enjoy that and film it more?
Oh, God. I haven't seen that.
I will
one.
say this. I do feel sorry for Britney Spears in that. I was always of the opinion that, man, shut the fuck up, people that complain about being famous. You asked for that shit. But I think after a while, maybe 2 days, 3 days, 100 paparazzi constantly following you, swearing at you, throwing things at you like you're an animal in a 1930s zoo, constantly poking you. I think at some point it would get tiring.
No,
And I think at some point you would shave your head. And Miss Love knows the experience.
Yeah.
He's
Just
there.
stay away.
I
from
do not
paparazzi.
blame her a single bit for going insane. That sort of attention would be like horrible for anyone.
Yeah.
And no one is thinking of you. Not a single soul thinks of you in a positive way.
No, they just see you as an amusing spectacle.
Yeah.
It's a very strange telling sign of like the human.
You know what is
psyche.
ironic though? Those 100 people constantly following her, trying to turn her into an amusing spectacle, did turn her into an amusing spectacle.
True.
It truly is one of the greatest examples of the fact that The Secret works, because most of her life was walking around like, y'all want to get Burger King? That's not that interesting.
So they made it interesting.
Yeah.
Dude, people can be like, fans can be really weird. I wouldn't be surprised if you were like having a heart attack on stage and you were like, hey guys, someone call an ambulance, I'm having a heart attack. And they'd be like, but do the line first.
Yeah.
That has happened to someone in the past. Have you seen that footage? I can't remember who the actor was. I think he was in Britain. He had a heart attack on stage.
What?
And everyone was laughing
Oh.
and thought it was part of the act.
Oh,
Yeah. Well, that was a reasonable mistake.
And he died.
Are you fucking serious?
Yeah. But
Well, that is
I will
very
give you this.
unfortunate because
No, I
he's a
think that it's
comedian.
really fortunate.
Like I would
kind of want to die that way.
on like die on the road.
Doing what you love.
Is that it? Is it?
Right in the middle of it. And as you're going out,
But would you be
1,000
disappointed?
people.
Of course
Would
you
you be
would. The best
happy?
way to go.
But would you be happy or disappointed if the venue you died at was in Toowoomba?
Oh, I'd
Yeah.
be really happy if it was Toowoomba.
No,
That'd
no,
be great.
You'd only be happy if it was Toowoomba. If like as you were dying, they're like, you just like, you know, haul your like dying body up to the counter and like 1 steak, please, and then they just shovel a burnt to a crisp steak in your mouth and you suffocate that on that while you're having the heart attack. Just like,
Yes, true. And while I'm trying to chew it, my teeth are breaking.
yeah. Just the best of both worlds.
these anymore.
And that would be your final meal, wouldn't it? If someone's like, you can have anything in the world, be like, I want a fucking Toowoomba steak that tastes like a shoe. You would want
Yeah. You better get that Indonesian lady that used to work at Sizzlers to do it. I just want her to have a job.
Yeah. It would happen that way.
Are all Sizzlers closed down?
Toowoomba's gone.
Apparently Toowoomba's
Which is
gone.
like, what the hell are we going to do there now? I don't even
Well,
know.
it's time. It's time.
I don't know. We'll go to Bob Jane T Mart and chew on the tyres. It'll be the
Yeah,
same.
Yes,
There'll
yes.
be less wood in the fucking tire.
Yeah, true.
Wood chips.
That has haunted you, hasn't it?
Oh, dude, hasn't it haunted you?
Not
Not
no,
so
I haven't
much.
thought about it since. But that's because if somebody did offer me wood chips, I'd just happily eat it.
True, that's fair. You
In
enjoyed
fact, that's
it.
the only thing that I'm annoyed at is you
can't eat
don't
wood
cook
chips.
those for lunch.
Now,
Well, do whatever you want.
do
No.
what you want. Here's the thing. I have either we can go on to the submarine segment. There's a lot of fucked up shit in there, or I listened to the Joe Rogan podcast, and there was an evolutionary biologist on it, and he brought a theory of why we think certain women are hot and certain women are beautiful. Do you want to hear that instead?
I'm pretty sure I've already heard it, but play on. And I'm going to the toilet.
All right,
What?
go on.
Speaking of hot.
Yeah.
All right, Miss. Okay, I guess I'll explain it to Miss Love again. But I can't remember the guy's name, but he's like really good friends with Sam Harris, and he was on Joe Rogan podcast. Brett Weinstein. So you know of it.
Harvey Weinstein.
Do you agree? Anyways, so so what he was saying is that he told Joe Rogan to close your eyes. Actually, let's do it with you.
Okay.
Close your eyes.
Is
and
this going to get us cancelled?
It probably may, but
right.
it has. So think of a woman that is hot but not beautiful. Can you do it?
That's going to take you ages. What does that mean? Hold on. I don't know.
Really? You failed the test. That means he's wrong.
Okay, let me think. This is probably going to take like half an hour, but I'll think
No,
of it.
please don't take half an hour. All right, okay. Let's forget this part. Anyway, he was saying that men usually can find certain women that are beautiful but not hot, or hot but
What do you
not
mean?
beautiful.
Okay.
Because he says that there are essentially three reproductive strategy that like the male brain has. The third one is like pretty bad and unspeakable. It's basically like, when you force someone. So let's forget that.
Well, no, that's not enough.
That's the reprehensible one. But he was saying that the second strategy is that you invest in someone because the amount of care and time that's required in raising a child is it requires like team effort. So
Right.
the way you find a reproductive partner is by investing in someone, and then eventually they agree to be the mom of your child, right?
Yeah.
Or the third one is a strategy where someone agrees to engage in reproduction without investing in them,
Yes.
which is, according to, what was his name? Weinstein? According to him, a lotto win.
Okay.
Basically, that you are still getting the reproductive need that you are coded for, but without having to invest in the woman at all.
Like a one-night stand, essentially.
Essentially, that's a one-night stand.
Right.
And it's become more common with birth control and stuff like that. So what he was saying is that when you think someone is hot, your brain is thinking that I could get the reproductive function without investing.
Yeah, yeah.
When you think someone is beautiful, you think that, okay, that's when you're willing to invest in someone for that reproductive function.
Makes sense.
So this is the other thing which, like, I guess comes down to.
That's what my girlfriend used to get offended by that all the time.
Is it offensive? So you agree with it? Because I'm still
No,
thinking
she wasn't
about it.
offended by it. She was just kind of just, what do you mean I'm not hot? I was saying they're two different types. I knew this instinctively.
Right.
Yeah. And
I
you
was just
want to
saying,
be
like, you
beautiful,
don't want to
not
be hot because otherwise, pump and dump. If you're beautiful, people are going to want to stay around because beauty lasts a lot longer.
But here's the controversial bit that Weinstein was talking about. He was saying that a lot of women today are thinking that because there's a lot of like emphasis on being hot in media and shit, right? Like that's what an ideal girl is supposed to be, like curvy, whatever is considered to be really hot, like an Instagram thought. And he was saying that that's a trap because you will get attention, but it's the wrong kind of attention.
Yeah, it's like
so there are like
superficial.
the two different ways that male brain function. If you're going to appease for the hotness, then their brain is automatically not going to want to invest.
That's interesting.
They'd want to go for the hotness.
But there is that rare person.
Hot
But how many do you think there are in the world? 10?
Is that a cancelable
That's
thing
a
that
lo-
I've just...
Cancel. Panthera.
I'm gonna
I really think that we've pushed that envelope. I don't think that there's anything else that.
Well,
we can
I don't
say
think
that would
I don't
get
think
us
it can be
cancelled.
that cancelable because the last comment
Joe
is
Rogan
ask
says-
Bill if he would fund genetically engineered cat girls.
That guy's been asking that a
Cat
lot.
movie?
I've just been ignoring that one. No,
Why? He has a right to voice his opinion.
no, he
Sandy
doesn't.
says beauty is also subjective. I guess it's true. Women,
But Sandy, is hotness subjective?
I think it is because some people that I think are beautiful.
I really want to hear your opinions on this as well. She's very horny.
She watches
Yeah.
a lot of Spanish.
She has the same
softcore
vice
porn.
that Ali has.
What's that?
Out of the 7 deadly sins, as we were discussing on the late podcast, and I'd like to just bring it up because it's my new
This
self-help
guy's a
paradigm.
Bible basher now. All of a
I'm
sudden.
a Bible basher.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure I'm Catholic. Give me a necklace.
No, you're a poser. You're not getting this.
I don't know if I am a poser.
You
I think
are.
I'm more of a Christian than you
No,
are.
you're not.
My life is much more Christian than you.
Yeah,
I'm
you're
obsessed
saying-
with fish. That's the end.
Yeah, but you're too pro-Muslim.
They are too. It's the same book, let's be honest. It's just a different translation.
I don't know. I haven't. I don't know.
Marilini is asking, can you be hot on the inside?
But that's
You
beauty.
certainly can. That's not beauty.
Well,
you can just
yeah,
have an
that's
exceptional
definitely true.
personality.
No, I think that actually having a hot personality comes to understanding the art of seduction. It was like what you were talking about with that stripper you met in Adelaide. I think really the seduction programming can kind of be reverse engineered. You can learn it and as a result become steamy. But having a hot personality means that you're able to elicit a feeling of horniness when you're around them. In fact, I get that sometimes. Sometimes when you're just talking to a woman that you don't find that physically attractive, you notice that you get a boner anyway.
Well, sometimes you just get
Oh,
boners
God.
without even being around the girl.
Yeah, sometimes
Hot
you just
or
get
not.
boners, so maybe it's got nothing to do with
Yeah.
that. Maybe I was just having a boner.
What, just in public?
I was just getting a public boner.
Jesus.
What, so you've never done that?
You've
Not
never.
since I
Well,
was
the
like
reason that you
11.
wouldn't is because your 7th deadly sin is slothfulness.
Yeah, and I'm
And
not
that takes too
13
much
anymore.
effort. That's also a good counter argument. But if you look at the way that I'm dressed,
That's
I'm
fair.
clearly still 13.
That's
You
fair.
are still 12 years old.
Hey, I'm looking to buy a house. Oh no, I got a boner again. I gotta go.
But having said
And
that,
that is how I interact with people. Hello, Mr. Summersher. Is your mom home?
Hello, Mr. Splibbersek.
I would say one thing. Once the initial hotness or beautifulness is over, then goddamn personality matters a lot. Then eventually the hotness wears off. Actually, beautifulness doesn't wear off. Hotness wears off. At some
Nah,
point.
beautifulness wears off, let's be honest.
Really?
Well, when you get to that
Yeah,
age where
at a
everybody
certain
looks
point.
exactly the same, you can't tell the difference between Bob Hawke and Ida Butt Rose.
But still, Kim Beasley is still very recognizable.
True, he looks exactly the
outlier.
same. He's the Rod Stewart of politics. He doesn't age.
So how do you? What advice, Jordan, would you have for girls that are out there looking for just that guy? They're nice women and they're looking for that They're looking for a guy that's going to be, I don't know, like good, reliable, or whatever. Or as Jordan Peterson said, confident and powerful. How do they get them? Do they not be hot?
No, you're going to have to increase the quality of person that you are. I really think that when it comes to relationships, water meets water. If you are a desirable person, and I'm not just talking about physical appearance here, I'm talking about having a psychology that is put together. I'm talking about having, like a personable aura around you. Because this happens a lot as well. Miss, I could attest to this. Sometimes when you go to parties, and this has happened frequently, women that we would have killed. I swear, look, Missov, you're a close and dear friend of mine. You have been for 15 years. But if I was a 15-year-old and some of the chicks in class were like, let's just do it on in front of everyone as well. It doesn't matter. Just whatever the circumstances are, let's go in that trash can.
Yeah.
The problem is you have to kill Missov. I'm sorry, but and I think you'd understand. You'd have to take one for the team.
Look,
I do.
yeah, I would.
Listen.
High school, yeah.
I killed both
High
of
school,
you for
yeah.
one. And you know what?
Yeah.
To this day, I'd still think worth it.
Yeah.
Even if
Yeah.
that seat was
Yes.
empty, Ali wasn't there. I'd be like, look, Ali is in heaven looking down
You
and
gotta take
saying,
what-
I would have done the same.
Yeah, yeah.
Everybody's
Have you
Take one for the
ever been
team.
in a situation where you've let's say, fornicated with someone and immediately regretted it?
Look, I don't know really how to answer that.
Look, let's move
Immediately,
on. There's no way to.
I wouldn't look. No, maybe the next day. But immediately, nah.
But what I could safely say is, if I was offered the same proposition now, I would say no. Partially because I've matured as a human being and just don't have the same hormones raging as when I was 15.
Yes, it's a different situation.
Look, your friendships between you guys have blossomed over the years as well, so there's that. But also, this is the other thing.
Just take a limb.
This is the other thing. With age, two things happen. Either you become way more glorious or you go crazy. People that do not work on their mind.
Right. That's true.
Like, speaking to them now, honestly, I still think they are as hot, if not hotter, than what they were in high school, physically. But when you speak to them, you notice yourself physically backing away. And it's just because they've gone nuts from not exercising their mind for 10 years.
Is that why it
Right.
happens? I thought it was all the acid.
That doesn't help.
That's what it is.
That doesn't help.
That's the thing. Instead of reading books, they took acid. And it opens the mind, but it's the same as opening an empty room.
Having said that, I did shrooms the other day for the first time, and I gotta say, do you know how you said Hurt Locker was really good? I saw Ransom starring Mel Gibson on shrooms.
I don't even know what that movie
Neither
is.
do
Dude,
I.
it is the greatest movie of all time.
Thank you.
I don't know if it was because of the shrooms, but by the
I
way,
think it was the shrooms.
I think it would be like, damn, that movie was
Did
good.
you trip out?
I did a little bit. Like
a
it was the
little bit?
first time I did it, and it was it just like sort of like heightened my senses. Essentially, I went for a walk to the lake with my friend, and it was pretty cool. Then I watched Ransom starring Mel Gibson, which was even better than that walk.
What did you
Yours is the
observe about
same.
your mind?
I didn't have maybe I didn't take as much, but like I didn't have like any. It just seemed like to me, it only seemed like when I went to the lake that the waves, the water was just more popping.
Yeah, everything's heightened.
But it's not. I did sort of think about like shit that is I don't know when you go into your mind, but I do that even when I'm sober. So I don't know if it was the shrooms. The only recognizable difference that I felt on shrooms was that my senses and my visions were just like slightly, I wouldn't even say heightened, skewed would be a better word.
Well, skewed in a good way.
Skewed in a good way.
I do actually think that it does. If I know that tech billionaires or people in Silicon Valley, which I assume everyone's a tech billionaire, but I don't really have any evidence to back this up. All right, okay, I'm just shooting from the hip here, guys. This is a wild ride. I think that they all microdose throughout the day.
Yeah. Well, before Wolf of Wall Street, if someone told me that every stockbroker does cocaine, I would have said that's ridiculous. But now I agree. So I'm guessing, it seems like that Indian guy from Google is tripping on shrooms all the time.
Well, but what tech billionaire movie changed that for you? The Internship?
Is that the one with
Owen Wilson taught me
yeah.
what it's like to be a tech
that
billionaire.
movie's mad. Put it on
Is it?
Google.
Isn't it just a big ad for Google?
Yeah,
It's a horrible
It works
movie.
for me though. She put it on the Google. Just say Google. Yeah, that's what I said. Put it
Well,
on
I
the
think
Google.
one of the greatest films of all time is Snakes on a Plane, and that was just a big ad
Yes.
for
That's just a
Red
joke.
Bull.
Oh,
right.
I thought it
didn't
was a
know.
big ad for Samuel L. Jackson because I thought he was awesome after that movie.
You didn't think about... Oh, right, that was the moment.
Yeah, well,
But he plays the same character every
I
time.
know, but
What
it's
was
so
it? It's
good.
just the fact that he was getting so old that he
no,
was
that
shaving his head.
one scene where he goes, "I've had enough of these snakes on this goddamn plane."
That's
Well,
not
do you know the story
line.
behind that?
No,
It was when the internet was first emerging and somebody had heard that Snakes on a Plane was coming out, and so they made a crap trailer using that really old stickdeath.com sort of animation of what they assume Snakes on a Plane was. And then it was just Samuel L. Jackson saying, "There are motherfucking snakes on this motherfucking plane." And then the director, even though it was in post-production, said, no, we're going to have to bring back everyone, get back all the actors, get back Samuel L. Jackson, pay him the extra $30 million that he wants for that one scene so we can get him to say that one sentence. And if you go back and look at it,
It looks
it's
different?
so it's like flicking from this camera to the camera that's both on you guys. That.
Hey, that's better now.
That's fucking gold.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I knew that.
There's a
but-
little bit of history for you that really should be immortalized in the Hollywood Hall of Fame.
And as a young lad, I really enjoyed the scene where the snake gets that titty. Because that was...
Why was that hot?
It was because I didn't
Combination of bestiality and
course.
necrophilia.
It's
course,
because
that's what you're
I
into.
had no internet during that time, and that was my only form of porn.
Well, as our guide in Pakistan said, Pakistan is a very horny country.
And it is indeed. It is indeed. Look, we don't have a lot of time anymore. Unfortunately, we've got only 10 minutes. But I did want to bring up this one segment because I think, Jordan, that this is something you should really look into. So our producer, who wants to be named, he wants his name to be the Stig. The Stig.
Yes, and it should be.
That's gold.
The Stig.
That's the best nickname that we have out of all of them so far. I mean, the worst one by a mile is the editor. Isn't it pathetic that this organization that supports a major party is so controversial that people actually have to hide their identities?
It's so weird, eh?
I'm not knocking the Stig. I'd prefer to call him the Stig. And I'm not knocking anybody else that does it, but I understand fully why they have to do it as well.
I don't.
Well, it's because you just have so many political enemies that everybody's just looking for an excuse to bludgeon you, and they don't have the added advantage of me, who lives in a room with portraits of myself. Thank you so much for sending them all in, by the way.
Yeah, but those people
And they're my friends now.
But those people just live in a room that's, in the burbs. Like they're not like...
No, they also... Well, this is the thing. If you also have a part-time job, you need a nickname.
Okay, I'll pay that.
But also, I do just really like saying... The Stig.
I like it too. That's...
Is there a funnier voice on earth than Jeremy fucking whatever his name is?
Is it Corbyn?
Corbyn. Jeremy Corbyn. Jeremy Buckingham.
Any of those will do.
Jeremy, who I'm assuming is a character in one of Charles Dickens' novels.
You need to go more block nose. You block your nose because he's smoked a lot of cigars.
The most manly smoking of all. Guys, why the fuck didn't you watch my car review ad? I think I'm going to have to kill that character because of how poorly it performed.
Really?
What was that all about?
Shit,
I was so
fuck.
proud of the car review character.
I can't believe that.
Toto Lancaster.
It didn't do well.
Yeah, I'm going to give it one more opportunity where we're going to race, I guess, my dad's ute with Ali's car. And they're just like, what's faster, a Lamborghini or this Ferrari?
Yes, yes. Come on. What is wrong with you people? Don't you know quality when you see
maybe
it?
get an actual nice car.
No, that's never happening. Yeah, you saying my dad's ute isn't nice?
Because my car is a fucking piece of junk. But look, before we go,
Send it this way, mate.
I did want to
Yeah,
bring up
send it
this
this
last
way.
thing. Jordan, I didn't know this, but did you know that submarine deal with France fell through?
Sucked in.
Yeah, it fell through. Here's what Stig sent us, right? This is an Independent
The
Australia
Stig.
article on this. Look, I'll read a little bit of it to give you an idea of how much of a major fuck up that was, right? So here's the design and cost errors. I'm quoting the article. Several of Australia's specifications were plain foolish. As Benoit Kepmark summarized, a nuclear submarine with a diesel-electric engine is a fail. An American combat system won't work in a French vessel because Americans and French do not talk. Lead-acid batteries will be obsolete well before the submarines are even delivered. So now that the deal has fallen through, France's original tender documents had projected between 20 to 25 billions of initial cost, and the deal was signed for 50 billion. In February 2020, the Library Research Service says that because the deal fell through, the new estimates are that it's going to cost somewhere between 80 billion to 145 billion dollars for the same thing. In fact, here's the other thing. Most experts were shocked why would the French tender take over precedence when the Japanese and I can't remember, there was another country, were significantly below, and we're meeting all of these requirements. The last reason why they think that this was a dud, check this out. Multiple failures were evident. The most basic is accountability. Since the negotiations began with France, Australia has had 3 prime minister, 3 deputy PMs, 3 failed treasurers, 5 defense ministers, 4 ministers for defense industry. Of the 15 individuals to have held these portfolios, 7 have left the parliament. None remaining has the competence to deliver for Australia or the mettle to take responsibility. And the current defense minister is on hospital leave. There is zero continuity.
You know what? Most of them would have gone into lobby groups.
The submarines are
lobby groups, because this is something that I've got a very big video coming out about it at some point when I think that I can slip it through the propaganda model. God, isn't it amazing? I remember watching Chomsky's propaganda model, Manufacturing Consent, I think for the first time in university, and I remember him saying that there's certain journalists in it that see glimpses in the propaganda model where they can release information that they otherwise wouldn't be allowed to release. Mm-hmm. Those are the really good, cynical ones that understand what the game is. Your Michael Wests. I've got to say I'm pretty proud of this. I think I understand the same thing, and I think you understand it as well. You can see when the tide is turning and for a brief second go, hey, here's a video that like counters the narrative. Otherwise, you kind of just, by how pervasive it is, have to ride off of whatever the fuck it's talking about. But one video that I've got coming out about it is talking about exactly why these submarines were signed. And this is the amazing thing. I've got another video coming out as well. I was researching that, and I got the gatekeeper to research, because I just thought that this would just be such a good way to hit Scott Morrison, turn the China narrative on him of he's so pro-Chinese. When you look at it, when you look at the facts, he's extremely pro-Chinese. He has sold so many assets to the Chinese, this man that's tough on China. Nothing in comparison to what the Labor Party has did. I think one of the first acts that they did was increase the amount that has to be investigated in terms of property handlings from $100 million to $1 billion. That was one of the first acts that the Liberals did. The party that's so tough on China. I'm telling you, it is the 1984 thing of, are these countries even at war? The countries that they're constantly professing that they're hating each other, and you never even know it in the book. And there's this perpetual kind of... I love that concept, that there's just this little professionalized war of these teeny specialized forces that they film to make it look like something big is happening, when in reality it really isn't. And I honestly think, to a large extent, that is what is happening in the South China Sea, because it just... really feeds into the narrative that America needs for its propaganda, what Australia needs for its propaganda, what the Philippines needs, what America needs, what the Vietnamese needs. It's not going to be exactly the same as in 1984, where it's a complete ruse, but it's definitely an opportunity that they can take advantage of. Just like in 9/11, after the planes hit, they used that as an excuse to invade Iraq. I think the same thing is happening. But one of the main things that I was looking into was the lobby group ASPI, and God, what they have done. What they are glorified weapon salesmen. They are pretty much... Panthera.
Why?
They will take this out. They'll take anything out of it. They're just
I would caution you, keep that for your main video. I really...
Look, this pretty...
You know how much I love that point, but keep that for your main video.
All right, I'll just give the general point then.
Panthera.
Regardless of whether you agree that China is a big threat or not, you know Ali and I's position, and then we obviously, just to balance it out, have the most profound, expert of our times on foreign policy, missile validation.
You get so much support whenever this happens. People love mislove in these situations. Because they think we've sold our... I don't know. They probably think that we're getting money from China or something.
And the unions and Get Up.
And all of that shit.
Both of you.
All of that shit. But when Miss Love is like, but hold on a minute. Are we sure that we want to be friends with a country that's national flag is red? Are we sure we want to do that, guys?
Of course, Labor would.
Yeah, unionists.
But regardless of whether you think that they're an existential threat to Australia or not, I'll tell you who doesn't. Scott Morrison, by his actions, he is selling off a bundle of Australia's assets to the Chinese. And it's not just the Chinese, it's any foreign company that wants it. They'll give it to him. While he's doing that, he is ramping up the debt in Australia to hundreds of billions of dollars to buy things like these submarines. How are they doing it? Because they're constantly keeping this idea that China's going to invade any day, running through the press so that nobody questions why military expenditure doubled and will soon quadruple. Nobody's asking that
We
question.
need guns,
And what are we buying?
numbnuts.
Yeah, but what guns are we buying? Do we need guns from the 80s?
Well,
Because
they're
that's
retro.
what we're buying. And why? Because this lobby group has so much influence on Canberra that it can walk in and say to submarines. When I was writing this was a video that's just in the works. It's just in the can for like another time. At that time, it was $60 billion. But the German subs were better in every way, and they were ready to go. We would have had subs in 2013. They probably already need to be replaced now, but they were $10 billion. Now we're up to what? $145 billion?
145 is the new one.
Really?
$145 billion for submarines
And-
that still don't exist.
And let's not forget
Jesus.
that not
Okay.
only is it
That's pretty
145
crazy.
billion, but the submarine delivery is really late. So let's just hope China doesn't attack us anytime in the next
Because let's
10
be honest,
years.
we're spending $145 billion to defend ourselves from China with invisible submarines.
Yeah, invisible submarine.
Fuck.
Anyways,
I think that's going to really help in a country that has 1.3 billion people, don't you?
Well, maybe they.
it's really sad, but
That's the
I don't
end.
know.
If you want to be depressed more, we are going live to the Friendlyjordies Up Late podcast that is not live at all. We don't edit it. It's
live when we do it.
It's TV live.
yeah, it's
It was
too-
live at a point in time
Yeah.
for who?
for us.
Well, yeah, it'll be live for us. That's what we're saying. Thank you so much for watching. If you want Up Late exclusive content, you know where to go. Friendly Genius Podcast.
Stories coming.